In just a few minutes, we're going to be gathering here to celebrate the festival of Purim. This year is very special because it's been 2 years since we were able to gather at Bevis Marks to read the Megillah, to celebrate this day. And it was 2 years ago in March of 2020 that we conducted the Purim service here. And little did we know that just shortly thereafter, we were going to go into lockdown. The whole world essentially was going to go into lockdown. And so it's wonderful that now 2 years later to be able to be here on Purim, to mark this important date and to really appreciate the everything we've been through over these last 2 years, the lows and incredible accomplishments as well. And so I think this year Purim will have for us an added joy, an added celebration, because we are able to celebrate here in the beautiful synagogue. And one of the ways that we celebrate, that we show that this is a special day, is of course by lighting the beautiful candles, the chandeliers here at Bevis Marks. And so what I'd like to share with you now is a video that I recorded last year before we did the building works about the chandeliers and talk a little bit more about them. And I hope that you'll enjoy watching it as a way to celebrate Purim. Hello. In today's video, I'm going to share with you what's probably the most distinguishing feature of Bevis Marks Synagogue, and that's the chandeliers. The chandeliers are imposing, beautiful, and in fact there are 7 of them, which has led to the tradition that each of them symbolize one of the 7 days of the week, with the largest one in the middle over here symbolizing Shabbat. In fact, this one is different than the others, and that's because it didn't originate here in London, but actually was a gift from the community in Amsterdam. The Spanish and Portuguese synagogue there sent this chandelier as a gift to the Spanish and Portuguese community here in London when they built Bevis Marks Synagogue. And so therefore, this is an incredibly special one that connects the history of Bevis Marks to the Esnocha, to the beautiful Portuguese synagogue in Amsterdam, and the relationship between those two communities. Now, there's a bit of a myth also about this chandelier, which says that, of course, these chandeliers hang from the ceiling, and if you go into the roof area of the synagogue, the ropes, the metal ropes, go all the way up into that space where they hang off of these incredibly large beams of wood. And the tradition is that the beam of wood that supports this central chandelier was actually a gift from Princess Anne, who became Queen Anne, from a decommissioned British naval vessel from the mast of one of the ships. We don't have any proof of that in the records, but when those beams of wood have been looked at, they do look at as if they've been molded somehow, that they had perhaps been used for some other purpose. And so there may actually be something to that tradition. But of course, what that tradition really speaks to is that sense of the connection that the Jewish community here in London had with the royal family, that sense that they were here with the blessing of the monarch. And so that was, I think, an important part of the identity and sense of place that the community had here in the United Kingdom. Now, we probably get more questions about these chandeliers than we get from anything else in the synagogue, particularly from children, because of course everybody wants to know, how do you light these chandeliers? And so I'm going to share with you. The way that they're done is through very long poles, and there are 2 of them, one of them with a wick at the end and the other one with a little cap at the end, one for lighting and one for putting out. You can see in these videos that I'm showing you now how those are actually done in practice with our caretaker Fernando doing it. And he tells me it takes about 45 minutes to light all of them, both down here and the lights that are upstairs as well. So it's a bit of a job. And so we only light them on special occasions, for weddings, when we have important events here, like most recently on Hanukkah, when we have special events for the British community. We'll light all of the candles, and of course on the Chagim, on the festivals. For the longest time, I actually didn't know where these poles were actually kept until I finally just kind of noticed them by the doorway. They're kind of hidden behind the doorway into the synagogue, behind some clasps that hold them in place. And really imagine that these poles have been here for centuries. They're bamboo, and I don't know, they may even be the original. It's hard to know, but clearly it seems that that has been the place where these poles have been kept from the very beginning of the synagogue. So the poles themselves are really quite amazing. Now, of course, one of the things that's important to note is that the chandeliers are meant for light at night. During the daytime, ideally, light would have been coming in through the windows, and there would have been plenty of light here in the synagogue. Now we have the electric lights to help with that a bit, but the chandeliers were meant for the nighttime, when it would be dark otherwise. And so we typically will light them at night. It's really only for weddings that we'll do it sometimes during daytime, just for the ambiance, but usually at night. And the one time of year that that's really apparent is on Yom Kippurim, because it's on Kippur that as we go into the late afternoon, mincha of Kippur afternoon, that Fernando will come into the synagogue, and as we're beginning the prayers, he will be going around lighting the candles and kind of preparing for Ne'ilah, preparing for when it's going to be dark outside, or getting dark outside once again. And so that's always quite an evocative moment here in the synagogue. And so these chandeliers really play an important part in the life of the synagogue. I've often wondered how they really worked, because for most times, even when we light the chandeliers, we still keep the electric on, because the light from the chandeliers itself doesn't really give enough light to properly read from the prayer books. And so we usually only do it for weddings, when people don't really need to read anything, and we'll just have the chandeliers lit without the electric. How they actually did it 150 years ago, when there wasn't electric and they would have just had the candles, here in the evening for service, I'm not quite sure. Perhaps they just were used to reading in the dark. But it's for this reason that, of course, the chandeliers hang so low, because the point isn't just to have something pretty, but it's really meant that the chandeliers should be here in order to give off light so that we can read the prayer book from them. And they are absolutely magnificent, absolutely beautiful. They've become very much kind of one of the symbols of the synagogue, and is really one of the special treats, one of the special features of having an event here at Bevis Marks, to be able to be here and to have all the chandeliers lit. And I must say that the light that the candles give off is amazing. It creates this yellow hue as the light flickers off of all the different brass chandeliers. It's really just magnificent. And so I look forward to welcoming you here to the synagogue, when you can enjoy the chandeliers and the synagogue in all their beauty. Thank you. I hope you've all just enjoyed that little look into the significance and history of the chandeliers. But more important than the past is, of course, the future, being able to be here, enjoying their beautiful candlelight, and so shortly being able to read the Megillah by them. And so I wish everybody a very happy Purim, a Purim Sameach, or as many here say, Purim Alegre.